You think you understand a city. Streets run flat, floors stacked neatly upward. The ground beneath your feet is simply the ground, fixed and level, the one thing you never think to question. But there is a place in the heart of China where that certainty dissolves into fog. A city of more than 30 million people, folded into the cliffs where two great rivers meet. Where the street you are standing on is also a rooftop, where you can ride an elevator down 10 floors and step out onto another street entirely. They call it the Mountain City, the Fog Capital, the 8D City, and most of the world has never even heard its name. So forget everything you assume about how a city is supposed to work, because Chongqing was not built upon the land, it was built into it. And what grew here looks less like a city and more like something dreamed up for the final act of a science fiction film. To understand Chongqing, you first have to understand that it never had a choice. Here, the Yangtze, the longest river in Asia, collides with the Jialing, and the land caught between them rises in steep, stubborn ridges. There was no flat ground to spread across, no room for the wide avenues and tidy grids of an ordinary city. So Chongqing did the only thing it could. It went vertical. Buildings climbed the slopes in stacked layers, their foundations resting on the rooftops of the buildings below. Roads coil around the hills like ribbon. Staircases vanish upward into the mist, linking neighborhoods that sit hundreds of feet above one another. And then there is the fog. For much of the year, a thick grey veil rolls in off the rivers and swallows the upper floors of the towers whole. The people here have lived with it so long that they gave their city a second name, the Fog Capital, a place where you cannot always see the top of the building you live in, a city that disappears into its own sky. In most cities, the ground floor is a promise. Walk outside and you are at street level. In Chongqing, that promise means nothing. Step out of a tower's lobby and you might be on the first floor or the 22nd. Ride the elevator down and you may emerge onto a brand new street with its own shops, its own traffic, its own crowds, floating high above the road you arrived on. Locals call it the 8D City because 3 dimensions are simply no longer enough to describe it. And nowhere is that stranger than at Liziba. Here, a monorail train does not go around the apartment tower standing in its path. It goes straight through it, sliding cleanly into the 6th floor and out of the 8th, while families live in the apartments just above and below. It was not an accident. It was not a stunt. The railway and the building were designed together from the very beginning. To the people who live there, a train gliding through their home every few minutes is simply the sound of the morning commute. The most surreal city on earth is, to its own residents, just home. And then, the sun goes down. As darkness settles over the rivers, Chongqing transforms into something the rest of the world has only ever seen in films. On the banks of the Jialing, an 11-story complex of traditional stilted houses erupts in golden light. This is Hongya Cave, clinging to a cliff that falls 75 meters to the water below. It looks less like a building than a palace of spirits, lifted straight out of a fantasy. Across the confluence, 8 crystal towers rise and then bend toward one another, joined near their summits by an entire skyscraper laid on its side. This is Raffles City, shaped by the same architect who gave Singapore its Marina Bay Sands. Neon signs in glowing Chinese script climb every surface. Multi-level roads stack and weave like the circuitry of some vast machine. Mist drifts between the towers, catching the light. This is why filmmakers and gamers call Chongqing the real Blade Runner, the living blueprint for 100 imagined futures. Except this future is not imagined. Someone is riding that escalator, eating in that tower, heading home through that fog, right now. It would be easy to call Chongqing futuristic, but that word misses the truth. Nothing here was designed to look like the future. Every impossible bridge, every train through a building, every street stacked upon a rooftop exists for one simple reason: the mountains left no other way. This is not a city that chose to be strange. It is a city that refused to be stopped. More than 30 million people now live inside this vertical labyrinth, more than in any other city in China. And to them, none of it is surreal. The fog is just the weather. The 8D streets are just the way home. The train through the building is just the 740. And perhaps that is the most remarkable thing of all. That human beings, handed some of the most unforgiving terrain on Earth, did not flatten it and did not flee it. They built upward into the cliffs and the mist until the mountain itself became a city. You thought you understood a city. Chongqing is here to remind you, you had no idea.